1, 0.
Hi, everybody, and welcome back to yet another cracking installment of the Matt Brown Show. This is the Built in New York series, and with me on the line is the founder and CEO of BHuman. Don, welcome to the show, bud.
Thank you so much, Matt. Great to be here.
I know, right? So you actually in in California. Fuck, doing too many series. You're actually in where are you? Turkey?
So currently I'm in Istanbul.
Istanbul.
Yeah, where we have a lot of our team.
All right, cool. We're going to get into that because it's actually quite an interesting talking point around using distributed teams and outsourcing build and things like that. But I've had a chance to play around with your tech. I think it's really, really cool. You've just done a platform sort of update, if you like. So very keen to show everybody what you've been up to. But for our viewers around the world, Don, that haven't heard about you and the great work that BHuman.AI is doing, why don't you kick us off with the elevator pitch and a bit about the origin story to the company?
Yeah, sure thing. So, in a nutshell, what Be Human is it's human connections at scale. That's what we really enable you to do. And the way we do that is by cloning your face and cloning your voice in order to make really limitless personalized videos. So really, really quick sample of a use case just to, make it concrete for folks is, let's say you're shopping on Zara, you add, let's say, a black trench coat to your cart, but you get distracted and you don't check out. Well, 2 minutes later, a text arrives on your phone and there's a video inside, and there's someone on the video who's talking to you, and it says, "Hey, Matt, how's it going? This is Jason from Zara, and I noticed you're looking at the black trench coat, but didn't check out yet. Wanted to see if you had any questions, like if I can help you with anything, with sizing, just let me know. I'd be happy to help." So that's a perfect example. And if it was Lucy who was looking at the blue bag, then it would say, "Hey, Lucy, I noticed you're looking at the blue bag." So we're able to change speech and change basically the way your mouth moves, the way your voice is synthesized in order to make unlimited personalized videos at scale to the end of basically establishing real human connections.
Sounds pretty hard thing to do. So let's stay here for a while because it sounds pretty impossible what you're suggesting here. So when you say personalized videos, it's basically so I'm going to repeat back kind of what I heard. So you're saying that your technology can take me, replicate me, and through its technology, automatically create personalized videos with me speaking to solve specific strategy or customer acquisition and any other kind of use case, and in the process connect in a personal way to my audience or my customer potentially wherever they are in the world. Is that loosely correct?
Yep, that sounds about right. And this can be embedded throughout the customer experience at any step. So, I just gave an e-commerce example, but you could easily use this in healthcare. We have a politician using this to talk to voters at scale and educate voters. So there are so many use cases and so many industries that this can play into.
Okay, well, let's stay here for a while. How many use cases? Well, what are some other popular use cases for that you see? Your community creating.
Yeah. So we have about 17 different spaces where we work. Just to sort of give you a list, right? Everything from e-commerce, marketing, sales, automotive, healthcare, um, even like utility companies, right? In terms of how they automate their financial billing system with video. Let me get into a couple use cases in terms of the nitty gritty. So one of our most successful use cases we've seen has actually been in the automotive space, which was completely unexpected. We started to have different dealerships across the country start to pick this up and embed it into the sales process so that whenever there's a new lead that goes into their CRM, a video is instantly generated for that lead that says something like, "Hey, Lisa, I noticed you're looking at the 2022 Toyota Pacifica, and I wanted to let you know that we actually have a special on this vehicle. It's sitting in the lot right now. Why don't you come in for a test drive? I'd love to show you the vehicle and see what we can do." And because that's going out instantly, these days in the automotive space, when you're working with dealers, the dealer who has the car that you're looking for and who responds the fastest, they're going to get your business, right? And so we basically enable them to do that in a really human way. People get these videos and they think that they were really recorded for them, right? And so they go into these dealerships like, "Hey, I just got the video from Mary. Is she in the office? She told me to come in," right? So people really love it. So that's an automotive use case. I'm trying to think of some other interesting use cases, definitely on the political side, right? In terms of educating voters. We've seen a couple politicians start to use this to talk to voters directly so they get their information from the candidate and not from the media, but also talk about the issues they care about the most. So if you are, Matt, maybe you care more about the economy than you care about, let's say, immigration, just as an example, right? So it doesn't make sense for me to talk to you about immigration issues. It makes sense for me to say, hey, Matt, like we had a conversation 6 months ago, and I want you to know where I stand on the economic issues in XYZ region. So that's another interesting use case. We've seen more on the sales marketing side, people putting this at really every step of the funnel. So if there's a white paper download, boom, trigger a video, send it out. Let's get that person into a meeting. If there's someone who fills out a form on your site, maybe they're going to request a demo for a software product. Well, I don't have time as a founder to give people demos all the time. I'm too busy building the product. So let's automate that process where basically I generate and send them a video within a couple minutes that says, hey, Matt, I know you're in sales. And so I wanted to show you how our platform can help you crush sales, and then take them through that experience. So there's a variety of use cases. We're really changing the way that communication is done at scale.
Mm-hmm. So is this deep fake technology?
Well, I mean, we try to stay away from the word deepfake because it doesn't really hit the nail on the head for us in terms of what we do. The way I like to describe it is think of a deepfake as painting a masterpiece. Like when you see a deepfake of Tom Cruise, different things on the news, right? That takes, yeah, there's a computer doing most of the work, but there's a human kind of drive in that process. It has to be perfected over time. We're more of like a printing press where you come in, you set up a template video, which is a video where you say, hey, name, this is Don from BHuman. I see you're in industry. We do a lot of work here, and I want to show you how our solution can help you, let's say. And then once you have that template set, like a printing press, we then make unlimited unique copies of that video, changing those key variables like, hey, name, and I see you're in industry. So that's a bit of the difference. One is more used, for comedy or sometimes manipulation, and it takes a human actor to drive that, where ours, you have to come in, you have to record a template, and you're actually controlling the process the entire time.
I've got your walkthrough video up on screen for everyone. So if you're catching the audio, basically, if you're on the audio version and you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel yet, you need to get your ass over there because there's some cool stuff that we're showing you guys. So just the thing that would be cool for me would be like to have, and I know you're trying to stay away from deepfake, and I know that's not what this is, but just for my selfish reasons, it would be really cool to have like a celebrity. You know what I mean? Like his I don't know. Whoever it might be, like have her face or his face, and then his or her voice, talking on behalf of the Matt Brown Show. You know what I mean?
Well, we actually have celebrities on the platform.
Oh, you do?
We do. We
Oh,
have,
there you go.
yeah, I don't know if you know Parks and Rec. We have Heard Hapley, who's the reporter on that show. That funny reporter. We have a couple influencers on there, and we're currently onboarding David Henry from How I Met Your Mother, Wizards of Waverly Place, been quite a few movies and shows. So yeah, adding that star power to it, absolutely.
Because it does work. I met this guy at Business Networking International at one of the breakfasts, and he was telling me about this website. Maybe you know it. Short-term memory is not the best these days, but it was basically like a celebrity marketplace. So you pay them like $800 or what have you, and then they will literally whip out their iPhone and go, "Hi, my name is Giselle Bundchen, and I highly recommend the Matt Brown Show. Go check out his podcast at blah blah blah." You know what I mean? Like, and I was like, "Wow, that's really cool." Like, I didn't, and obviously you don't get all the celebrities, but you do have like some really interesting, well-known TV show hosts and contestants and what have you. And it's this idea of UGC combined with influencers, and then mapping those two things to a specific objective, I think is a really powerful idea. And if your technology, on your roadmap at least, I know you're already doing it, but once it gets to some kind of scale, I think that's a really interesting play.
Right, right. Well, I mean, you're basically putting celebrities in the customer journey. I always like to think of everything from the perspective of how does this fit the customer journey, right? Because I mean, that's really what a business at scale is. especially anything, any online business certainly like follows this customer journey map really tightly, which is like you're selling this whole experience. It's more than just a product, right? It's you're selling the funnel, you're selling the ad pages, you're selling the customer support. And so when you look at that and you start to think, all right, what happens if I put, let's say I'm selling, some sort of a niche product, like outdoor sort of like hunting equipment, things like that. And there's this YouTuber, he has 500,000 subscribers. He's all about hunting. Everybody knows him in the hunting community. Well, what if I put him like on the newsletter welcome, right? So every time someone signs up for a newsletter, they get a welcome from this influencer. And you start to look at it like that, and you look at it like little nodes in a system essentially, and like what's going to speed up that customer journey, what's going to accelerate it and amplify it. So that's how I like to look at things. When you add star power into it, yeah, it tends to just amplify the effect that's already there.
Mm. What if this isn't UGC? What is it? What type? You know what I mean? Like user generated content. This is more like AI GC, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, so there's actually two ways to use our platform. You could go in, you could record your own videos, um, make any variables you want, right? You have complete freedom. It's like an open world. Or you can use our template store, which is basically, dozens of these pre-recorded templates that could just be from regular people who, know how to be in front of the camera, or they could be from influencers or celebrities. And so we have them organized by industry. So, let's say that you want to follow up with stale leads and you don't want to record something, you just want to click a couple buttons and you want all 700 stale leads sitting in your CRM to be engaged with. We have a couple templates for that use case exactly. So you just open the template store, you'd look for a sales use case, a lead check-in template like that, put in the data from your CRM, click generate, and then send those videos. So depending on how in-depth you want to get, there's sort of two paths to generate videos.
So, what would you say for our investors out there who are listening to the show? What would you say is the size of the market opportunity that you guys are going after?
Mm. So I mean, it's tough to estimate exactly just given how many industries play into this, but we're looking at least 15 billion when we really calculate it. The reason that we get to that number, we start with the email marketing industry as a whole, right? If you look at our technology, the number one thing people think of is, okay, I'm doing this thing with cold emails or just emails in general, and it's doing okay, or it's not performing that well. Let me replace it with video. We all know that video performs better than text, so it's a very easy shoo-in, right? So there's one market right there. But then you start to look at more side markets. You start to look at patient communications within a healthcare group. You look at how banks communicate with customers and drive upsells for loans. And there's all these other use cases for BHuman. So that's where we get to that $15 billion mark.
Yeah, it's projected to be 17.9 billion by 2027, and that's going north. And then what I thought was quite interesting was to look at the content marketing industry. That's $500 billion, $487 billion. So pick your struggle. You know what I mean? It's a massive market, and I can see the applications for this. So I think you guys are gonna scale pretty quickly, given how given how active and liquid the sector is already.
Definitely. Things are moving fast. I mean, you'd be surprised how many people are looking for this solution, right? I mean, you'd think most of the market hasn't thought about how AI can fit in, but I talk to people. The other day I had a call with someone in the wedding space and he knew exactly how he wanted to use this. He was just trying to find the right tool, right? And he found us and he was ecstatic. But people, I give them credit. I mean, they really they see the vision for how AI will change things and they're hungry for something.
Have you played around with Chat GPT? I think it is.
Yeah, I
Ha-
have.
have you?
Incredible.
It's
I have.
ridiculous, eh?
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
it's
it's crazy.
it's fucking
It,
ridiculous. People who think that like AI is like a thing that's coming, no. It's like especially now with what OpenAI is doing, it's gone to another level. Like Jasper. So Jasper's like, I mean, just to put the value potential, I think, of what BHuman is doing, and if you compare that to like what's the closest reference to it, so the closest reference for me is Jasper. .ai, and all they're doing is it's creating content, but purely like social media posts, blog post articles, and things like that. And when I was playing around with it, I wasn't that impressed, quite frankly. Like if I said scaling a startup, create me a 300-word article, like if you read it, you're like, yeah, what you've done is you've scraped 500 articles and just mapped sentences. And so, from a completion perspective, I'd probably put it at like 40%, which would mean that I'd still need to put time and money to finish it. Just that one article. And then, if I did 50 articles, you know what I mean? Because I want to do an SEO play or something, that's going to cost me a bit of money. So, even though the product isn't perfect, and I don't think any product is perfect, like ever. You get this; it's never really finished. But the company's worth $1.5 billion. Do you know what I mean? And it's such a small use case. There's no video. You know what I
Right.
mean? You can't map that content piece, the Jasper content piece, to like a scalable use case in a medium which is very, very prevalent in a sector like B2B marketing, for instance. So you guys,
Right.
like, I'm excited to see where you guys are going to go.
Yeah. No, I mean, me too. And it's sort of like, it's very easy. I think this goes for AI in general, especially when you start playing around with like Chat GPT, right? You'd be like, oh my God, like I can think of 25 ways, 25 different companies this can drive, right? Like from anything like, okay, this can be used now to automate like sales processes, or it could be used to respond to my emails, or it could be used literally, you could come up with like a dozen. The question is, and the challenge is like, all right, where do I start, right? Because it's much more than just having an impressive technology, which frankly, it's like what I've been focusing on all this time. What I've learned is that, all right, you can have the best tech, but you've got to have the best end-to-end solution too, right? So
Mm.
little things, Matt, like, okay, this is really, really freaking cool, but can it integrate with MailChimp? Because that's what I use, right? Like those are the things that make it or break it, right? And so we've spent like literally 3 years building the technology, just grinding through it. And now it's like, fantastic, we got it. Now let's make that end-to-end solution work, which is where we've been spending our time lately.
Mm. Yeah. So what kind of traction are you guys seeing at the moment?
Yeah, so we have really two different sides of the business. The first is the enterprise side, where this has been around the longest before the platform was launched, where we basically kind of work like an agency. We're, helping the enterprise with strategy. We're obviously processing all the videos using our tech every step of the way, and working with them more holistically. And here we work with Philips, we work with Essential, marketing conglomerate out of the UK. We work with a couple different banks. So that side of the business is growing steadily and doing very well. On the platform side, which is really only about a month and a half old, if that, um, we're doing very well. We got the top product of the day, number one on Product Hunt. We're at about 800 users right now, growing every day. And yeah, I mean, to be totally frank, Matt, haven't really put too much into marketing. It's all been word of mouth. We've just
Mm.
been focusing on the product. There's just so much to get done. So focusing on the product, helping those early adopters get on board and start seeing value from it. That's been the focus. And yeah, we're taking a product-led growth model. So, our thinking and our strategy is let's make this the best product possible. Let's just make it so easy to use and such a no-brainer.
Mm.
And then the rest, the growth, right? Word of mouth will take care of most of that. And that's already what we're seeing.
So love it. That's cool. So we touched on this up front, but you're obviously in Istanbul, right? So it's like, why the hell is a New York just chilling out in Istanbul? So I know the answer, but why are you there? And this is about building a product with the team there. So help us understand what you know.
Sure. Yeah. So, BHuman, I started it out of Staten Island, grinding, you know, just focusing on building the product when we had no money and when we had basically nothing, right? We got funding for a pre-seed about 5 months ago with Mistral VC out of Canada, who's a fabulous, fabulous partner. And we decided, all right, we need to build a team. We need to hire not even the best people because the the technology we're developing, the pool of people who can build what we're doing, and this is just like the specialized parts of the bigger machine. there's maybe, 50 people in the world, if that, just depending on what we're doing here. And so you have to find people who are not only they know it already, but hungry to learn it and have that capacity. We looked around the world, and Istanbul really was the clear winner for where we're going to create like a hub of our development team. The reason for that is because they have some of the best universities in the world, top three universities in Turkey, and I think the sixth or seventh best university in the world is in Istanbul. ITU, Istanbul Technical University. There's a lot of great other ones there, and they actually teach with MIT material. So all these students who are graduating, they're essentially graduating from MIT, except they don't have that, premium stamp, that fancy university degree, and they don't get hired for 200K, right out of school. So we came in there and we thought, all right, let's treat them very, very well. Let's give them a home. And due to the way currencies work right now with the Turkish lira and the US dollar, we're able to get them at a very, very, very competitive rate and build a real community there. And so they see this as their chance. Our team there sees it as a chance to, prove themselves and to work really, really hard and make something they're proud of, with a company that can support them, and with a real community of people who, have each other's backs, and just like we work super closely every day together. So that was the reason behind, why Istanbul. We have people all over the world, but we're trying to really build a hub there.
And what's your experience been like on the ground culturally? Because obviously it's obviously it's different, right? And so while they have the skills, what's the culture like in terms of the hunger to build innovative products like the ones that you guys are building?
Well, the first thing I would say is that and this is a generalization, of course, right? Like we hire people who show these signs. So, there's a filter naturally, but extremely hardworking people. Very, very honest. They're not afraid to say, I messed up. They're not afraid to say, I don't understand why this is not working, right? They're not trying to look good. They're just trying to get the thing done and get it done with you together. Um, you know, everyone puts in 10+ hour days. It's just the regular thing. It's like we're all working on the weekends. We don't ask them to. They just want to because they know they're part of something special, right? Um, and actually on the ground there, culturally, to be frank, there's not that much of a difference from your average, let's say, European American city. Of course, it depends on the neighborhood, but we're over a neighborhood called Karakoy, which is a really, really cool, young, trendy neighborhood. There's a really nice cafe culture. People are, working out of their laptops sort of everywhere, like all over the street. Everyone's just hanging out. So yeah, it's a really, really cool place to be in. I mean, just in terms of enjoying it and building community there. But there's a great culture of really hard work and, I would say, dedication to the craft of technology.
Hmm. Have you been to a Turkish bath yet?
To a Turkish bar?
Yeah, no bath. Like
Really?
where some big hairy guy comes in and like sprays you with water and scrubs you down.
Oh no, that actually I haven't. Played some
Oh,
Turkish
dude,
bar.
you're
That case,
missing out, bro. You're missing out. You're a young guy. You can
I
handle it.
know, I know. I don't know why I haven't actually. I can get that
I
done.
wonder why. I wonder why. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Exactly. Cool, man. Well, look. And so, um, what happens with IP, for example? Just because this has come up on the show a few times. So, like, let's just say, uh, you know, your HQ is built is in New York, right? And then you've got an offshore development team in Istanbul. Where does the IP sit, for example? Does it sit in Istanbul, or is it automatically transferred through agreements to the employer or the holding entity, in this case, your startup in New York? Like, where does
Right.
IP sit? Because I'm just curious about the answer in the sense of when you are looking to do your Series A, for instance, and an investor says to you, yeah, but I get it, but where's your IP sitting? Who owns
Mhm.
it? You know what I mean? How do you
Yep.
protect yourself from that kind of a question from a VC in the future?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Well, all the IP sits essentially at our US based entity. So everything is centered around that. When we work with anybody, be the content creator or the most, you know, impressive machine learning PhD, we have agreements in place, of course, that, so any IP developed during the time we're working together belongs to the company. So, we're well protected in that sense. And obviously IP is very important. So yeah, that all sits centrally in our US entity.
Okay, cool. So you're obviously doing this, or creating a product like this is pretty hard. It's a hard science thing. You've obviously made a lot of mistakes. So I'm curious to ask you this, which is like, what would you say has been your greatest failure on this journey to date? And what did you learn from it?
Great question. I would say, and it's kind of tough to answer that because it's hard to determine what is a failure and what is a learning experience. I know that sounds kind of cliche and cheesy, but yeah, quote unquote. But it is kind of true. It's like everything, I think we're in a good place right now, right? And everything we've done, positive or negative outcome, has gotten us here. When I look at like was I banging my head against the wall that now I know an easy fix for, like that sort of thing? Or what was I wasting time doing? I think that's the question you're trying to get at, right? And I would say it's not understanding the true life cycle of what it takes to build a product, a working product, a good product, right? It's kind of like I mentioned to you at the first part of the show. It's like you can have the greatest tech that anyone has ever seen, but if you don't build a product around that end-to-end experience, it doesn't matter, right? You
Mm,
have 10 seconds of someone's time once they sign up. And of course, you got to convince them and spend all this money and time to get them to that point, whether organically or paid. But like once they're there, yeah, you got 10 seconds. So it's like you got to be really, really, really good at getting them to that like first aha moment, like that first,
mm,
oh, there's something here. This is worth more than 10 seconds. This is worth 5 minutes, right? And then, oh, there's something here. This is worth 20 minutes. This is worth a day. This is worth me signing up with a credit card. So I would say when I first started this journey, I was like, okay, we can build a platform in a month, no problem, looking at it, right? And then 3 months later, yeah, what happened to that? Six
yeah.
months later, what happened to that? And you're all the time you're setting expectations with users, like, yeah, we're gonna have something for you in 2 weeks. Don't
Yeah,
worry
yeah,
about
yeah.
it. I remember, in fact, back I told everyone in the company, like all our partners, all our salespeople, like, yeah, the platform's gonna be ready before Thanksgiving for sure. 2021. And I feel like we're just finishing it now. So that's over a year.
Oh,
So,
God, it's
but
literally.
my first time doing this, building, a true software product like this. So,
Mm,
you learn as you go, but it kind of makes me think of like World War I, it'll be over by Christmas. And then like a
yeah.
couple months later, yeah.
Yeah, it's ridiculous, man. Like, also because I'm the world's most impatient founder. So, like, I've built, just busy selling one of my products now, actually, just like an IP sale. Basically, we built this thing. It's functional, but never actually did anything with it. Just change of priorities. Now that I'm here in the US, basically, it was like a small business loans marketplace platform, whatever. Anyway, so but like there was that, and then I had another a product called Tech Lead Bay, which was like a platform that enables indirect resellers of technology solutions to scale through data intelligence and stuff like that. Anyway, so I've been on the journey that you've been on, and like I can't tell you if you're if you're an impatient founder like I am, like I want everything done now. I'd rather make a decision now and fail and then pivot than not make a decision, wait 6 months or 3 months or a month or 2 weeks, however long that is, and then have to suffer the consequence of waiting. You know what I mean? Like it's just too much. It's a fucking ball ache. But but I do appreciate it. You know what I mean? And I think to your point, it is a balancing act on what you communicate, because you want to communicate, don't you? You got these users. You're like, hey, we want to cut like the version 2 of your platform. Like getting that out for you is really important. So you, in your excitement, you communicate that, but then shit happens. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
like, well, we ran into this bug fix, and then we it cost 2 days, and then there was another thing, and it's got to go through a whole new cycle. So yeah, I fully appreciate the pain. It's tough. It's tough.
I mean, good things take time, so it's just kind of part of the process. And I'm very grateful that the people around me, our users, like they're very patient with us and like forgiving of us. You know what I mean? Like when we miss communication deadlines and things like that. Um, but yeah, I mean, one thing I learned early on is to emotionally sort of remove yourself from it. And this, I especially learned when you're raising money. I'm sure you've been through it, like where it is because you're putting your heart and soul into this, right? Like anything you build, it is you, that thing, right? And like when there's a setback, when you're talking to an investor and it seems like he's about to write you a check, and then like he says, actually, we have to delay, like all those things, like it will drain the hell out of you. So you've got to sort of, I don't know, emotionally rise above it in a way where it's just you see things on a macro level and it's just like bad news doesn't even affect you anymore
Mm.
because you've seen this story 100 times. There's 15 bad news and then one great news, and things just go up and down, and but eventually the upward trend is there. And so you've got to sort of see things at a macro level and operate at that scale emotionally while still having your, your rational head in things tactically.
Hmm. Yeah, it is a struggle. So speaking of struggle, what are you struggling with now? Like, what's on your mind? What's top of mind?
Yeah, great question. I would say the thing that I'm struggling with right now is, it's funny. I had a chat with a developer earlier today working on something, and I was doing some UX, some like designing, and he's like, "Wow, you do everything." I was like, "Yeah, I'm CEO, Chief Everything Officer." And it's like, I think the biggest struggle right now is like learning how to create a model of ownership over each part of the business that I can rely on people for. Um, when you're building, you're doing things quick, you're doing things messy. There's no organizational chart. Like, it's a web of relationships, of 2 a.m. calls, of just figuring stuff out as you go. That's great. You need to do that to a certain point. Once you're at that certain point, you got to shift to be like, all right, we need to structure this in a way where this is going to run like a well-oiled machine. And if I need to focus on, if I'm going to go away, focus on growth for a month, or I need to make content for a month, I didn't know product is still running solid. All the different aspects of the business are taken care of without my presence and attention there. So that's the thing that I would say I'm working on right now, which requires you to go in and just spend a lot of time thinking about like how the whole process of the company works and how things can be made more efficient and who you need to move around. So I would say that's the biggest challenge and thing I'm working on.
So, are you going to be raising anytime soon? Like, where's your head at with that?
Yes, definitely. So the plan right now is to raise some time in Q2 next year. So we want to, get a couple thousand more users in the door. We want to, get some good relationships with some other enterprises and further establish ourselves. Basically, we know we can go a lot further with what we still have in the gas tank. So we want to push that to the extent that we can. And then do a raise basically to say, all right, let's scale this thing.
Have you thought about how much you want to raise and what considerations would you put into that thinking?
Mhm. Yeah. Well, I mean, when you look at this marketplace, like as we were discussing the start of this podcast, I mean, there's so many industries and so many use cases. Um, Literally, I mean, 17 industries we work in. And then within those, maybe 10 to 15 use cases. So it's like, what I've learned is that the early adopters will seek you out. The wedding company who does 1,000 weddings a year, and they're like, we need this for our leads, our lead flow. We absolutely need this. They sought us out and they found us. They're the early adopters. That's great. We love those people. But in terms of like really penetrating the mass market, you need to have the easiest solution that a 5-year-old could do it. And to do that, it takes a lot of time and attention on a single use case, right? And we have hundreds. So, what our strategy is right now is let's absolutely crush one single use case. And we chose e-commerce and specifically abandoned carts within that use case, just for a couple different reasons. Let's kill that. And then let's scale into 20 more or 50 more,
Mm.
depending on what the resources look like. But all those things required like making their own funnel for them, making a whole experience of the platform for them with maybe different features included, different excluded, depending on the audience. Um, so when we're looking to raise, we're looking to do between 5 and 10 million for our next round. And the whole idea there is that this is an execution play, right? We have a model, it's working, it's proven to work, but we need to spend resources building it in a way that is appropriate for each use case. And by the way, there's like over 100 of them, right? So like
Mm.
that's where we need to spend time and attention, of course, as well. Keep developing the AI. Like we have a really strong research team.
The advice Jeffrey Moore would, if you read the book Crossing the Chasm, you have, I'm sure, right? Have
I
you read it?
actually have not read
What?
the book. I read the
With your
Spark Notes.
so you just sounded cool with your early adopting.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, you know what? Don't read the book. Go listen to my interview with him. So he was on the show. I'll send you the link after this. But basically, I know what he would say. He would say, even though so this is about scale, right? So crossing the chasm. It's the Bible of technology scaling, whatever. Anyway, so he would say that if you don't choose e-commerce, you will never scale. That's what he would say. So the idea is like you must stick with e-commerce, and I know you know this anyway, but stick with e-commerce and make it about e-commerce, because the use cases aren't going to be solved. Like all the use cases are not going to, like no one's going to come in and just solve all of them and you're going to be like, oh shit, you know what I mean? But e-commerce as a abandoned cart, like let's actually check that out. I'm curious now. See, now you got me thinking.
Sure.
Value of abandoned carts per year.
Actually, 80% of all e-commerce business is lost due to abandoned carts. So like if you're an e-commerce store, you spend all this money getting people to your store, buying the product they like, you keep your products in stock or the whole thing. And
Yeah.
then 80% drop off after they add it to their cart, like during the checkout process. So it's wild. It's like it's a ton of value loss.
Here you go, dude. In 2021, the estimated value of merchandise abandoned in online carts was $4 trillion. 4
Yeah.
trillion. Dude, so if you can't build a unicorn of that, just that one use case, you know what I mean? Like with what you
Yeah,
do
yeah,
and how everything's gone e-commerce thanks to especially COVID. You know what I mean? It's the sector's not going away. Like you could easily, I would suggest, get to Series B or C. You know what I mean? With just sticking with one use case, and then it's and because you're choosing e-commerce, it drives that word of mouth. It's like, well, hey, we use this thing to, you know what I mean? And the other thing I'm a great believer of, and I don't know how you feel about it, but like the only time, like I founded 14 startups over 25 years, and the ones that scaled to some uh, any measurable, like I was like, oh shit, that scaled. Like, why is that? Was because I let the market dictate it
Mhm.
more than I did. Do you know what I mean? It's the same principle of the mom test. You know what I mean? Or doing customer discovery, or building it because the customers say that this is what it is. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and if e-commerce is kind of like what your early adopters are, it's like, well, I would suggest that may be something to look at. You know what I mean? To scale that. Um, and then to your point, it's like you don't need to solve all those use cases, like automotive, like I get it, and politicians and shit, but like really politicians, like that for me is less scalable than the e-commerce thing, as an example. Automotive potentially, but I don't know, like I just believe, like, choose a customer and be for them, because that's always where the scale comes from, and it's so hard. Like I had to choose like the niche. It's like we for you, and everybody else, even though we can help you, we're not going to help you now. Like, sorry, you must go away. And what that does, or at least in my experience, like I had Chris Lockhead on the show, and he literally wrote the book Niche Down. And he also wrote another book you should read called Play Bigger. It's about category design. Also changed my previous business. And it takes balls, man. Like I remember when we were we had basically reached some kind of scale. We're doing like $1 million a year or whatever. And I looked at the client base, and 90% of my clients were technology businesses. Why? No idea. But when I spoke to them, they were like, "Yeah, we love your speed, and we love the value that you can create." So then I was like, "Cool. Well, what do technology businesses need?" Well, they need leads. Cool. Well, let's go up. And I repositioned the entire company. We were like 10, 15 people. And then we were like, cool, we now do sales ready pipeline in days for tech businesses. And the moment we did that, like everything just shot the lights out. It just like we doubled revenues every year. The competition became clearer. We built a better product because we were clear around who we were for. Our pricing became clear. Our customers became clear. Everything became clear. And with clarity, it becomes focus, and what you focus on expands. And you know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like, and I literally subscribe to that principle, that philosophy, because I find that in many cases it's easy to be romantic, especially when you're a visionary such as yourself, Don. like it's easy to connect the dots, isn't it, to like all these things that you could do, but it takes discipline to say no. And I've found that you define yourself not by what you say yes to, because you could say yes to everything, like we automotive politicians, blah blah. But that's fine. But you define yourself more by saying no.
Mm.
And but it takes courage, like, because it's like, oh shit, we're gonna leave all the scaling opportunity off the table, and we're gonna raise in Q2 2023. You know what I mean? And so you get into this intellectual dance with yourself. You know what I mean? And then it's like, oh shit, like, what do you actually decide?
Completely. I mean, what you say resonates more than you know. I mean, that's been probably, and like I feel like I'm only beginning to realize it the past couple of weeks, sort of dawn on me, okay, we need to focus, is that we keep saying yes to everything. Like, oh sure, we can do a video in Mandarin for your bank, no problem. It's like, well, we should be spending time in one spot. And we know which spot it's and cut free commerce, but it's like, it is so hard to say no, but yeah, it's necessary.
Uh-huh. I know. Well, that's the challenge and the opportunity, right? So,
Yeah.
so Don, what would you say success means to you now? I mean, if you've got traction, um, and you've got a great product, there's obviously a huge upside here. What does success mean to you now, today?
I mean, I think success looks like taking this as far as it possibly can go. Or at least as far as I'm capable of taking it to go with my skill sets, right? And then maybe bringing in help to take it further. But you know, right now we're in the building phase, and we have like some really incredible things in the R&D pipeline that I'm like just I can't sleep at night because I'm so excited about like how cool this stuff is. And I'm not so focused on like what the end goal could be. I'm really just like really enjoying what we're building, and like it's just so fun to put it out into the world and like see people's reactions to it when they're just like blown away. I mean, so it's less about, I mean, I think success just looks like that times 100. Like, okay, instead of 5 researchers, let's get 50 and let's build like a community out of it and let's do this more.
Mm.
So success looks like just moving in an upward direction as much as we can and just building really cool stuff.
Cool, dude. So I want to have a bit of fun with you. So I want to give you the keys to the Matt Brown Show time machine, and ask you to go back to day one. So imagine we are day one, probably in New York, and haven't quite moved to Istanbul just yet. But if you think about all the things you've learned, all the things you've succeeded at, failed at, etc., what advice would you give yourself on day one, if you could go back then, about building this business?
Yeah. So day one, I was actually in Brussels. I was walking through a forest with an ex-girlfriend, and I was telling her, they had this idea, like, what if you, like, I always have to get on calls and give demos, and I was running a lead generation agency at the time. I was like, what if, like, I was able to, like, sort of record myself doing that, but then, like, change the name each time, so I don't have to do this all day long. And she was like, yeah, it doesn't sound like a good idea. You shouldn't do that. Exactly what I did for the next 3 years of my life. Um, but if I could go back and like, what would I tell myself at that point? Oh, I mean, I mean, the first thing is like, this is going to be a lot longer than you think it's going to be. Like buckle up, because this is you're embarking on like sailing across the Atlantic for the first time ever, and you have no idea if you're going to find land or not, or die on the way, and like be mentally and emotionally strapped in for that. And thankfully I surrounded myself with amazing people. And so, I've been very fortunate for that. But I think it's just more about like seeing this as like, okay, this is a journey, it's a lifestyle even, and less of like, okay, I'm going to do this, I'm going to switch up, I'm going to do this company now. It's more like you're going to change the way you live, which is a good thing. But like, you need to see it like that and not like going from point A to point B and then B to C.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's very true. I got to write this book. It's really nagging me, but it's like how to survive the first 90 days, you know. And I love that analogy of like setting sail, crossing the Atlantic, because without knowing you're going to find land, and you're probably not going to make it. you know, you're probably not, dude. So get over it. And the moment you accept that, then everything else becomes real. You know what I mean? Or at least possible, I think.
Yeah.
But look, let's wrap this up. One more question for you, Don. Um, so there's obviously the business that you are, and then there's the business that you're becoming. What would you say is the business that you're becoming?
Well, I would say that right now, with our product line, right, it's all about personalized videos. And what we're moving towards is personalized experiences. So we have a really, really, really cool technology. We call it Persona. And hopefully, I was going to say in a couple weeks, but let's just say a couple months. Let's hedge our bets here, right? It'll be live and you can play with it. And what it does is same experience we're having right now, where you're asking me questions. I'm searching my knowledge repository, giving an answer, but I'm right here. You can see me move. You can see my hands move. You see me blink, all my gestures. That's actually possible. And we're actually in the later stages of development, bringing that live, where basically you can actually clone yourself having a conversation with an infinite amount of people. And that's just an example of where I think the company is going, like where we started and where we're going. Obviously, we'll always be doing this sort of asynchronous communication, like, oh, you requested a white paper. Great, here's your video. Let's have a call. But we're moving towards being a much broader company of human experiences at scale, to put it simply.
Mm-hmm. So basically, what you're saying is that in the near future, I'll be able to conduct 1,000 interviews a week with some kind of AI, clone of myself, but basically, getting it pretty close to the real thing.
Hmm. In a way, and I feel like most technology, it can solve 80% of the use cases for a thing, right? And it's like that extra 20% that could take 10 years. So in a way, yes, you'll be able to automate most repetitive conversations that you have. So like, let's say you're talking to a customer about what your product does. Like totally you can automate that. Podcasts are a bit more nuanced. It's a bit tougher, but definitely repetitive conversations you'll be able to automate.
Very cool. Don, doing amazing things, buddy, and doing a lot of things right. So wishing you all the very best for the future, mate. It's been great to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Alrighty. Thanks, everyone. Ciao.